Our preferred coffee importer in the UK is Falcon Speciality, and I have been sourcing from the team there since November 2012. That is a huge amount of time ago. I was, a few days ago, invited to a summit, so a conference that they were putting together for 50 of their clients from around Europe. We congregated on their offices in Lewes, East Sussex, which is about 275 miles away from me here in Hull, to talk about a bunch of things surrounding the coffee industry, our relationships with them, and a bunch of other stuff. This video is a synopsis of that 2 days. I will run through the things that happened and also the actions and take-homes that I want to do post the summit. I'm going to stand here with a cup of coffee and talk my way through it. So the summit spanned 3 days, essentially. That was a Wednesday travel down from the roastery here in Hull and a Friday return so I can attend Saturday market in Beverley. So I arrived back home at 10 o'clock on the Friday night. I was awake at 4 a.m. on the Saturday to go and sell bags of coffee to you lot in Beverley, East Yorkshire. Wednesday I travelled down. Obviously the traffic was pretty hideous. It was a long journey, took me about 4 hours door to door, which was a shorter period of time than my Friday return journey, but I'll come to that a little bit later on. So I arrived at the hotel, I stayed in a Premier Inn, easy out, nice and easy sleeping, and then congregated at the Falcon offices at 5 p.m. on that Wednesday evening for a meet and greet and some drinks. At that point, I was able to meet some of the roasteries that had arrived in town. We were able to chat through, wear some name badges and do some handshaking and stuff like that. At which point it was then back to the hotel room and prepare for the first day of the conference, which was Thursday morning, 8 a.m. start. They like an early start in the coffee industry. To be fair, I do too. So 8 a.m. started with a breakfast, at which point we will then run through the itinerary across the 2 days, which was broken down into a morning cupping, followed then by a short talk, lunch, talks in the afternoon, breakaway, and then an evening function should you be around. Thursday morning's cupping was all about a bunch of coffees that they had been sourcing, were en route to the labs, and or some other things that they wanted to discuss in future. So there was a table that was pretty interesting that focused on processing methods of decaf. So you had water process, CO2 process, you had ethyl acetate, you had sugarcane, you had a whole bunch of things so that we could taste the different processes across the decaf offerings that they have. It was pretty interesting cupping those coffees side by side because each one of those processes obviously, but I hadn't thought about it too much, imparted quite a difference in the actual cup profile. We then cupped through Kenyans and Burundis and coffees from Uganda. There was some Hondurans, which was stunning. Peruvians, they talked about the Peruvian crop. Falcon has an office in Peru, and therefore they were talking quite a lot about the good work that they are doing back on farms, and I believe it was called their Falcon On Farm project, which is about farming techniques and how you could regenerate soil structures and stuff like that. They have a scientist on board that is doing quite a lot of soil analysis. Anyway, that was the cupping in the morning. As all cuppings go, really insightful, great to taste amongst a bunch of professionals that you value and have valuable feedback. So lunch it was, beautiful lunch, and then into the afternoons, Thursday afternoons program, which was where most of my value was attained. We were sat and listened to some exporters from origin. There was a lovely couple, Shak and Dana, who came from a coffee project called the Coffee Gardens in Uganda. There was a lovely lady from Bet Buna, which is a project, an exporter in Ethiopia, and also Suruma, so a coffee cooperative based out of Colombia. Now, I do not and have not ever been to Origin with the specific view to purchase coffee. This is a fundamental flaw or gap in my company at this point in time. I always knew it, but this particular part of the event made absolutely starkly clear that I need to get to Origin. not just to understand the processes in firsthand that are happening back at farm level, but most importantly, to buy from people. So I buy from Falcon Coffees. I have worked with them for well over a decade, and I have, I hope, a really lovely working relationship and a good level of trust between that company and mine. Now, speaking to these exporters, it would be great to continue that story human to human back to origin. So this afternoon's 2.5 hour part was the real take home from me, but I'll come to that a little bit later on. So once we listened to each one of those projects, we then got the opportunity to break away and go out for an evening function at the Abyss Brewery, which is based in Lewes. This is fantastic, lovely place. It's the sort of thing that Hull should have. Having a tap house like that would be really fantastic. Lovely burgers and chips, you know, things that I really enjoy, minus the beer, because I now don't drink it. It's been 2.5 odd years since I last drunk alcohol for various different reasons. And do you know what? I feel better for it. Anyhow, back to the hotel room, bed, with a clean head, and up again for the Friday's session. Now this is another interesting day. It was broken out as usual into a cupping in the morning and a talk in the afternoon. However, the cupping in the morning was focused on a competition. The competition was 3 kilos of green coffee received by the roasteries that wished to enter. There were 13 of them. The coffee was a Margahipe from El Salvador, but notably it was a past crop. And the task was, can you roast this coffee such as to disguise the past crop element? Now, twofold. Roasting a coffee to disguise age is pretty difficult. And also, roasting the large beans of Margahipe is also pretty difficult. With an umbrella layer of, if it's past crop and large beans, that's even harder still because you have different water activities and a whole bunch of stuff. There were 13 entrants. We cupped that during the morning and we came back then to the results of that in the afternoon session, which was after lunch, sat down with us roasters. There was maybe 35 people there, something on that basis. And we talked about things that were affecting us in the roastery and the industry more broadly. We talked about color sorters. We talked about co-ferments and how those could or may not benefit each roastery. We talked about a bunch of other systems and processes around roasteries that can help. There were some lovely roasteries that were much larger than ours that were able to disseminate really useful information. And I hope going forward there will be a WhatsApp group or something like that that will be able to discuss about these topics in a greater length, because the problem with these events is that there's so much to talk about and so much to do in such a short space of time. We then closed the day with the results of the cupping, which were quite insightful, and I'll come to that a little later on. There was a shared 2-company win, and both these companies get the opportunity to travel to Ethiopia with Falcon. The reason why there were 2 winners was because on our cupping forms, we were given essentially 2 buckets of questions. Has the roaster been able to disguise the fact that there is age in the coffee? And on the table, which one do we feel is the winner? So on one hand, we had a winner based on that, which we feel the winner is. And on the other hand, there was a winner based on how we feel the age had been disguised. One of the roasteries was present and gave us a really funny story about how this lady had nearly broken a roaster that she had been borrowing from another roastery. I hope actually by the time she got back to that roastery that she found out that she hadn't broken it and it was maybe just a little hiccup or malaise with the apparatus. After this, people partook in Falcon's 4 p.m. Friday afternoon beers. Of course I didn't because I was driving back up to Hull, and that was it. That was the end of the 2 days. That was also a little bit of a quick run through, but I'm going to now describe the key takeaways and the actions that I'm going to have as a roastery going forward. On a business level, there was a single statement from Conrad that really resonated, that scale is important. Now, what do I mean by that? I could scale my business, grow my business in the pursuit of profit and other sorts of functions of business. I could scale and grow my business to do with positive impact for the environment or back at origin. There's a whole raft of things. Now, my mantra with the business that I run is wholly about providing and protecting my family. So in this statement of scale is important, it resonated because if I can grow my company, I am better versed or will be better versed at providing and protecting my family. So as I walked away on Friday evening, I had this mini fire in my belly to really try to grow this business such that I can provide for my 2 kids and my partner. And as a consequence of that, everybody that surrounds this business, whether they are my staff, suppliers, customers, will benefit from that drive for scale and growth, because I'm a very traditional person. I look after my family, I look after people around me. I am a traditional type of person. So I try to do good. I like to do good work, and therefore the pursuit of scale will have positive ripple effects on those people around me. So that was a good take home. Another profound part was the discussion with exporters from origin. It is great that I now have first-hand experience with communities back at origin. So I must get to origin with projects that suit the mantra of this business. Pretty much wholly those things that Falcon do. So I have already reached out about a project in Uganda, the Coffee Gardens project. Why? Because I spoke to Shaq and Dana. They have a very similar familial setup that I do. They have a 4-year-old child and also a 5-month-old who is present at the talk. Very similar to my kids. I like working with people who are similar to myself. Also, and very, very powerfully and importantly, on one of the cupping tables were some pre-shipment samples of coffees from Papua New Guinea. You guys may not know that I grew up in Papua New Guinea between 82 and 88 or 89. My parents had emigrated from South Wales to live in Papua New Guinea. My father got some work over there. So Papua New Guinea has a resonant importance to my early life. My brother and sister were born out there. I have many family photos and fantastic memories. So if I get the opportunity to purchase coffee from this growing nation, I should seize that opportunity. Similarly, if there's an opportunity to be able to travel to the origin, be able to give back anything that this company can offer, whether it's time or stewardship or finance in cooperative projects, I should do that. Why? Because I have a deep resonance with that particular country and place. It is the reason why my father in 2002-03 decided to start roasting coffee. He had in his logo the mountain structures of PNG. So it's super important to me, and that is going to be my 25-26 long shot project is how do we onboard PNG coffee? How do I create projects based on that country of origin? It was also lovely to feel part of a broader community of people working towards a common goal, which is delicious coffee in a cup, for you to have delicious coffee at home. It's nice to sit with, for me, other roasteries that are focused on that single emphasis in their business. I don't necessarily get that whilst I'm here in the roastery. You can sometimes feel a little bit isolated as a business owner. You have competition that is around you that can sometimes build walls and barriers because your view is just about your local area. You are trying to protect the thing that you are developing. So lovely to step away from that and sit amongst like-minded people that can share freely information about how they have developed their business today or going forward, so that you can feel part of that broader community. The results of the roasting competition were equally very, very interesting. Both the winners were roasting on air roasters. So the winner on the cupping table that had the most votes of the best on the table was roasting on a Typhoon roaster. The other winner, which was the one who had disguised the age the most, was roasting on a roast, or R-O-E-S-T, however you pronounce that, both of which are air roasters. And that's quite interesting, to be fair. The Typhoon had presented such delicate flavor processes, and on a competition level was, for me, the standout on the cupping table. So if you're thinking about purchasing a new roaster, that is something to note. Drum roasters, body, depth, etc. Air roasters such as the Typhoon, there are other brands, will present fidelity of flavor, clarity of flavor, and if you're into competition stuff, honestly, the starkest for me on the whole table. The third place came in on a Gießen, or Gießen. They were roasting, I believe, 1 kilo batches on a 15 kilo roaster. I would argue quite strongly that such small batch sizes in such a large volume is almost an air roaster. So therefore, position 1, 2, and 3, caveated with it is a drum roaster in the air, were air roasting. That's pretty interesting. There was a Loring entrant, I believe, but they didn't place. It could be to do with the color. I did not enter because I've never roasted a 3 kilo batch on a Loring, or 1 kilo or 2, anything of that 3 kilos. So I knew that I would not have been able to do a good job at all, nor would the value of trying to do that at competition level be worthwhile for me. So I didn't enter. Interestingly, when we discussed the roast approaches, the winning approaches were how I would go about it. So this is what I would have done. I would have soaked the coffee for a fairly long period of time. Big beans, possibly with different moisture contents or water activity. So low and slow at the beginning, and then taper up the heat towards the end with a fast fall away, because it's a large bean that would have gained much momentum. So at the minute on the Loring, I am roasting in this pyramid approach where it is a taper up, flat, and then taper down. I would have done something very similar to that, but I would have extended the soak period. Now this is with respect to the 3 kilo batch in the Loring, but I would have done exactly the same if I had a full 12 kilo production size. So that was pretty interesting. It was a little pat on my back as to the methodology and approach to this style of coffee and this style of roasting for a competition. Now, I feel that I have rambled on quite a lot through this presentation, so I will close with the actions going forward. I am going to do my best to get to origin, if not this year in 2025, throughout the year of 2026. I will try to develop a project with Papua New Guinea through Falcon Speciality, should they be bringing coffee into the UK, and that's the caveat. If they do, I will work with it. If they don't, this will fall back into another day. I will also, on this basis, try through this medium of long form videos, do a monthly review. I did do this a little while back, probably a year and a half or so ago, but I'm going to set the stall out for the month forward. So what I'm going to try to achieve in my business, and also look back in review of the things that I had said the month prior. For example, in September, I could state that I'm going to kickstart the conversations with Falcon Specialty about getting to origin. And at the end of this month or the beginning of October, I will look back to see whether I have achieved that. I will use this long form medium in trying to keep me honest to those statements. And of course, for those people who have chosen to A, sit down for this length of time to listen to me, or B, just want to come along for the journey as a customer or a viewer, will see that I am being honorable to my statements, so you can see the trajectory of my company and where I want to take it into the future. And I think I will close on that statement. Thank you so much if you've managed to stay the course of this video. If you have any questions about this summit, if you want me to go into greater detail about some of the discussions, for example, the commodities market and its pricing over the next 12 months and past 2 years, do let me know in the comments. I'd be very happy to discuss this openly. And of course, if there's any topic that you want me to discuss in depth on this video format, you let me know in the comments as well. Thanks again for watching. You have a great week ahead.